for opportunity to speak to you all. Not many people telling goddamn jokes, but it's good to hear them. Why are blockchain jokes so boring and terrible? Because they take too long to validate. I got a couple. I have another one with a Merkle tree. Yeah, just getting ourselves ready here. I got a little animation video for you guys. Yeah, we did this video.
Who you say you are, like every time you open a new bank account, is incredibly painful. What if you could fill in one last compliance form, get verified, and never have to fill one in again? Introducing Blockpass, the blockchain-based, safe, immutable, distributed whitelist of KYC verified identities. Simply provide your personal information, and Blockpass will check it. Once marked clean, you can instantly interact with all Blockpass-enabled applications, like opening a bank account or exchanging cryptocurrency in seconds. And after you've been verified, we destroy your personal data. We are providing the foundation for seamless and trusted interaction between humans, companies, and devices. Blockpass, passport for a connected world.
Thank you. That video was done by an Italian development team based in Torino. They're really great. We work with them a lot. They're also designing the skin of our app. So here we go.
Just go to slideshow.
At the bottom.
Slideshow.
No, at the top.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Technical issues. So what Blockpass is identity for the connected world. It's a self-sovereign identity verification platform for users and merchants. And it is, what is self-sovereign? We'll get into that, we'll discuss that, but essentially it's user-controlled, user-centric identity. We're using the blockchain, its strength, to actually create this app. It's essentially an app, platform, application that is focused on digital identity. So I'm not really talking about a token today, although there is a token, a native token in the platform, a utility token. I'm talking about our app and our platform, which is in beta and will launch fully in next month in version 1.0. We have plans for additional versions and adding technology to that, additional technology to the app. So essentially what it does is it gives control over a user's data, identity data, to the user. So why do we do that? Well, how did we get here? We got here because our company was working on actually device identity a couple of years ago, and we found that there was a real need for device identity because there's a huge rise of connected devices in the world, right? Millions and millions of them. I mean, we can't even count how many there are out there, and that could be anything from a webcam to a Nest camera, or anything that's connected is potentially lethal, can be used and hacked and aggregated into bot networks that attack server networks. And there's the coming of AI, and all of this is created a huge security nightmare for who? A huge security nightmare for humans. And that's the absolute key. We have to have a human identity, standard human identity verification platform, because humans, companies, objects, and devices are all entities in the Internet of Everything. essentially, the Internet of Everything is Internet of Things, connected things, and humans, plus humans. So it's absolutely essential that we have human identities so that humans can have ownership and control over connected devices and objects. Objects are dumb objects that suddenly are connected to the Internet. So, so it's a really simple principle. Humans and machines know each other, play better together. They work together better. It's like going in the playground. Someone you know you're more likely to play better with, and that's sort of the idea that we connect, have human identity for humans, companies, objects, and devices. So, what is self-sovereign identity? Essentially, as I said before, is user-centric, user-control. We want to move from a non-user control identity system to a self-sovereign identity system. Essentially, most of the identity on the internet today is centralized. It's controlled by governments or by companies, very large companies. It sort of results in identity data being siloed and fragmented across disparate online services, websites, and applications. Users do not own their identities and have little control over them. And the next phase that has sort of developed in recent years is federated identity, which allows a person to use the same credentials to log into multiple services. For example, your Google identity or your Facebook identity. When you sign up to a service, there'll be, put in your login detail, a new password, or you can sign up with your Facebook account or Google account. Now, this is really problematic because it does not resolve the underlying problem of users having control over their identity. Not only that, if that service collapses, if Facebook disappears, you lose all your access to all your different services. A third phase, which is getting better, is user-centric identity, and that is fully portable, user-controlled, secure digital identity that uses a platform of a number of projects that include OpenID, which was in 2005, OpenID 2.0, OpenID Connect, OAuth, and FIDO. However, this falls short of complete independence and freedom. Users are not under the control of a service, application, or website provider, but they still have their identities maintained and controlled by the providers of those services. So, but the ultimate goal is this fourth phase, and that's self-sovereign identity, where users completely control their identity and identity data. They have security and integrity in that data. Users' digital identities must be protected from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, or modification. It also has ultimate portability and sovereignty. What do we mean by sovereignty? Sovereignty is a very sort of historical, political, sociological term. It means control over something. And self-sovereign means control over yourself and your own data, because user data and user identity is key to doing commerce and interactivity on the internet. Well, what does Blockpass do? Well, Blockpass uses the strengths of blockchain technology, namely immutability and security and uptime, as a natural registry or whitelist that is based on a smart contract. Users join the identity management app by just downloading it onto their iOS or on Android, and they can upload personal data to the phone. The data is stored on the phone. It's then there's a Merkle hash root that is stored in a whitelist. The whitelist smart contract that Blockpass uses stores the user ID, the ID of the smart contract keys, and whitelisted keys, and root hash of the Merkle tree. So when the merchant is able to check if that person's verified by having the same Merkle hash root value, if they have the same root value that they check, then the user is onboarded into their exchange. Let's say it's an exchange or some kind of financial service, and so it's instantaneous. Now, that user can then look at other services that might be in the app that might be signed up. Say it's a bank or remittance platform or an ICO, they can just instantly choose that service, and they don't have to go through the whole KYC process because they're verified instantaneously through the app. So, and what obviously this platform is being developed for was for token offerings, and there was a huge problem with token offerings and a backlash from regulators, as we know, with this surge of ICOs. And it's evident that blockchain will change the world, but it needs an identity protocol to allow for compliant interactions on public permission blockchains. It also needs it for, ultimately, for ICOs, for using it as a fundraising mechanism. And as we know, regulators' response to this, we've seen it everywhere, pretty much in the US, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, Korea. In Hong Kong and China and Korea, they actually outlawed ICOs. Now, South Korea is sort of backtracking on that now, but it's still a huge issue with them because this idea of completely anonymous fundraising is an anathema to regulators. And also the cost of doing KYC is skyrocketing. It's going up not just for token offerings and cryptocurrencies ecosystem, but for mainstream financial services, because they're required to do more and more KYC, and it's costing more and more. Coinbase said in, I think it was 2014 or 2015, back then, that KYC was 20% of their budget. It's probably a lot more now because they're doing tens of thousands of verifications a day. So it's a huge cost. And the cost doesn't go down when you do more KYCs. So, and as I said before, there are problems with ICOs. When you have projects that are raising $200 million from anonymous sources, it's going to raise the it's going to concern regulators. So we're not in a perfect world where everything can be done anonymously. So we have to deal with regulators. They're part of the world. So that's what Blockpass is about. Blockpass is a regulated technology. It's a reg tech. And it's about trying to bring the mainstream financial services world together with blockchain in a friendly, stable way. So compliance realities are, it takes time, it interferes with onboarding of customers, it interferes with switching between merchants, and increases costs ultimately. There's no solution yet for this, that solves this problem, and we believe Blockpass will be that solution because it helps blockchain businesses reduce their compliance cost and mainstream business as well, protect their identity and personal data of the user, and systematically address blockchain's need for reg tech and identity verification, provide privacy and formal identity verification system that is compliant with next generation data regulations. The reason why it is compliant is because we keep no data on Blockpass. So Blockpass doesn't keep data of users. It blows it away. The data is stored on the phone and then is sent to the merchant. And the merchant has to have the data because for regulatory reasons. For example, Coinbase has to have data on every user or they'll get in trouble with the regulator. So Blockpass's immediate product features include ability to design standard tokens that plug into Blockpass protocol, meaning that the transaction can be performed and achieve full compliance in just minutes. Using the protocol, Ethereum blockchain startups will be able to launch fully compliant token into the market that permits the onboarding of existing KYC members that are already on Blockpass. And digital currency exchanges and other digital currency merchants will also sign up to the Blockpass IDN with a single sign-up for Blockpass users. This means that exchanges and other blockchain merchants will reduce their onboarding costs substantially. So the immediate outcomes include a reduced cost of compliance, making compliance attractive to users. One way we do this is we actually reward users with the token in the compliance, and when they do the compliance. And merchants pay in the token, form of the token. So there is a token economy going on there. Also, additional identity network providers, they can join Blockpass, and as they onboard merchants, they can also earn them a token. It makes public blockchain more safe and compliant. It protects the personal data of users. It creates a platform that the development of compliant decentralized applications, builds a seamless protocol, and creates a seamless and secure environment. this is the way an app looks right now, and we're refining the actual UX. We're going to continuously update the UX and the technology. We're initially targeting exchanges, ICOs, blockchain startups, financial services, regulated technology players, insurtech, traditional industries, and government. Lower hanging fruit for Blockpass is in the cryptocurrency ecosystem already, but we are getting a lot of interest from mainstream banks and governments, even central banks. We're based in Hong Kong. We're well funded already. The Blockpass app has been in development since the middle of last year, and we have partnered. We're now partnering with a UK university to further develop the sort of tech of Blockpass. They'll be our sort of R&D arm, and that will potentially include zero-knowledge proof anonymous verification. So the future development plan for us is not only for humans, but for companies and devices. We ultimately want to make it facilitate the rental, sharing, and transfer of ownership of devices, which will have their own sort of birth certificate or identity, digitalized identity. And one of the reasons for that is that, as I said before, there are huge problems with the Internet of Everything, with the growth and amount of connected billions and billions of devices that will be connected on the Internet. We have done some proof of concept where the identity platform, particularly for humans as well as companies and devices, are utilized, deployed in shipping and logistics networks, and also in solar energy, where you need to know you have a solar utility that is renting out solar panels, so you need to have that identity of the utility, the people renting the solar panels, and it's a lease-buy system where they eventually buy the solar panels, and each device, the data logger has an identity, the user has an identity, and the company has an identity. And as I said before, we're leveraging zero-knowledge proof tech to ultimately develop a anonymous-based verification system that is comfortable to regulators using ZKP, or zero-knowledge proof technology, which is passwordless technology. Thank you very much for listening to my talk. I'm open to questions, more about Blockpass if you'd like. Thank you. This lady here.
So I was thinking a lot about identity on the blockchain, and you're talking about, you're talking about financial identity for, we have so many different components to identity, health and records and all that stuff. So A, are you guys looking at that? And then B, were you talking about using identity for the sharing economy, let's say of different things, renting the solar panels. Now in sharing economy, we have some aspect of reputation management. You know, right? So what will reputation management look like on a system like this?
Well, ultimately, that could be another part of the component of the system that we're seriously looking into. Not only not only reputation, but reputation of devices, for example, because you want to know if that device has ever been hacked. So you'll actually have a lifelong reputation for a registered device. And for people, it's a little trickier because there's data privacy laws. We're having to adhere to these because we're actually building this thing to adhere to privacy laws. In European Union, I don't know if you've heard of GDPR-S. It's the new privacy regulations about keeping data privacy. It's very, very, very strict. So we have to be careful with that. But as the platform puts control of data into the user's hands, there's more flexibility. And the user can ultimately make revenue by renting out or selling their data using this platform.
What if the user, let's say there are bad actors in the system,
right,
and the user has data on there they don't want to share with you, they've got a criminal record or whatever, right? So what are the pieces that I can control in what I'm sharing, and what are the pieces that I can't control so that I can't hide things that people need to know?
Okay, that's a very good question. Blockpass plugs into established Know Your Customer and AML, which is anti-money laundering, and PEP, systems, which is sort of like anti-terror. Exactly those type of people that you're talking about. Of course, it's not going to be perfect. There are going to be people out there that are bad actors, can never 100% prevent that from happening. But what we can do is prevent duplication. So that's being built into the system as well.
All right.
Question over here. Am I running out of time?
All right, you talked about that you guys spoke to governments. I'm curious as to which government bodies that you've spoken to, and in particular in Hong Kong, which division of the government that you guys have spoken to.
We're in conversations with regulators in different markets. I can't really go into detail on that, but in Hong Kong, we've been talking to Monetary Authority, Invest HK about assisting us. But obviously, the bigger markets are more like the SEC in the U.S. and also European, Europol, Interpol, European privacy authorities, etc.
All right. Thank you very much, Hans.
Thank you.
All right. Great. Our next guest, we have Deepa Satahi.